Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with fellow HR folks. And though the audience is a little thin, but I think we'll make it interesting. I'm sure people are watching online. So before we go around and just contribute to this topic, I just wanted to set a little bit of a context by talking about one of the things which is being often written about. Some people have called it the Great Resignation. I'm sure you would have read about this trend. And this was a term coined by a professor called Anthony Klotz from the London School of Management in 21. And basically what he predicted was that there's going to be a massive exodus of people in 21, 22. And it actually happened. And it hit all sorts of segments, sectors. So it was sector agnostic and it was country agnostic. So Western countries, European countries, Southeast Asian countries, India also to some extent, all faced this massive exodus of people. Exit, they called it the Great Resignation. Some of the reasons for this are very interesting. And I think those will be coming out more in the session. So I'll just maybe take a minute or two on that. The interesting part about this Great Resignation was that this was not triggered by any one person. It was not like an industrial revolution or it was not like a strike. It was a spontaneous across industry phenomenon. And what drove it was, one of the reasons was people said it's COVID, but COVID was only a trigger factor. What COVID did was, it added to this whole Great Resignation story. So what is provoking people to leave their jobs? Are they all getting new jobs? The answer is yes and no. So for instance, in Vietnam and Cambodia, people who were working in the sweatshops in the COVID times, they ditched their jobs and went back to their villages. And they said, look, we were not very happy. In fact, we were miserable in our place of work. We'll go back to our villages and maybe we'll get some work, but at least we'll be with our families. Second reason is this COVID actually has done something to the mind of people. There are many organizations who tried to break that work from home and called people back to office, and they met with stiff resistance. So people just did not want to come back for work. Maybe some were, afraid for their health, they had already gone through grief in their families, or they just felt that this flexibility is good for me. But whatever you may call it, people said, no, you don't want to give us flexibility, sorry, we are quitting. So it is my way or the highway. The other thing was alternative occupations which came up. Some were in the unrelated areas, some were in the digital field. People started working from home, doing investments, online trading. All kinds of things happened. Finally, one of the things which they identified was that the attitude of employers actually triggered off this Great Resignation. Because in the COVID particularly, many employers gave up on their employees. We have read about the sad case of migrants in India, for example. Even organized sector, many did not really support their employees. So there was a thought that if we can manage, we were out on the street anyway, and we managed to survive it, we will survive again, yet another day. So we don't need this rigid, regimentation, etc. So whatever the reasons, the reality is that today, when we are looking for hiring employees, we have to be conscious of the fact that first the employees are hiring us. They are selecting the organization, and if we pass that test, then we may select them. Now, the faster HR folks come to accept this reality, we will be able to better manage workforce, deal with exits and talent and so on and so forth. So with this, I'll just throw it open to the panelists, and what I will do is, I have just framed a few very, very broad kind of questions or topics, and we'll just go around one by one and keep it free flowing. So first question which I will ask Mr. Salvi is, and maybe others can just answer the same question so we have a view on it. In the last 2 years, are you seeing attrition peaking, and if so, which categories specifically? I mean, which is a little unusual attrition, and if so, what are your thoughts on the reasons?
First of all, very good evening to all of you here, and thank you, Iti, for this opportunity. Pleasure. Mr. Kurane, I decided to sit on this side because, in the other panels when I used to sit last, by the time my turn used to come, I never used to have any answer. So I insisted on those guys to, call my name first, and I get to choose the chairs. It would have been really surprised if you would have started from that side. I would have fought with you.
I knew it.
Yeah, I think, if the question is around, where do I see the attrition happening? I think, more appropriate question or the easier question would be, where the attrition is not happening, right? You pick up any space and you'll see we are experiencing, the attrition, the Great Resignation, or probably the way I see it, the Great Realization, right? I think, my personal view is rather than the pockets, I see attrition, a lot of attrition, which is level driven, and junior the resources. I think the lesser the barriers, right? I think, from there to move on. And what probably the COVID did was the organizations, and you rightly said that, we probably didn't do what we were supposed to do. The firms lost the anchors with the employees, right? And to that extent, I think, the employees could free up themselves and take probably, very, very objective kind of decisions on the calls. Okay, I'm going to get this kind of a level, position, salary, I should move on. Earlier in the day, there used to be a lot of those, barriers for them beyond the salary, etc. This is the place I like, these are the employees I work with, this is the boss I love. You took everything out of the equation, and suddenly, everybody became a kind of free to explore opportunities. Personal view, I think I have seen attrition across the level. I have not seen attrition at the leadership level, because leadership was extremely engaged during the last phase, right? So I have not seen the leaders, the business leaders, or the people who were engaged in dealing with the crisis calling it quits. And all of us were essentially busy in fighting the business demand. Somewhere I think, there was lesser priority which was essentially accorded to the employees and their needs, right? I think, we were trying to fix, how we're going to get a business, how we're going to survive, the impact on P&L, the cost that which we are going to take. We're saddled with the offices, the rents we're running. So I think, day-to-day stuff that we were dealing with was very different.
Basically, what you are saying is that one clear trend was that people at the lower end of the pyramid was a higher attrition, and leadership definitely stayed put.
Leadership stayed put, yeah, that's true.
Mr. Ramakrishna, would you like to add to this? Any specific areas you experienced?
Thank you. I think adding to what Anil said, two areas that I thought got massively impacted. One was fleet on street attrition. Particularly because we're talking BFSI, I think it's the biggest one that kind of, and we were massive employers of fleet on street people, given the flexibility to most other roles. Say, for example, head offices were working out of home and we were calling people in the branches. Just inequality. The way people thought they got treated. I mean, you're not great, right? You're not very different. I'm the one who's earning your salary and my salary. So how we treated the fleet on street vis-a-vis people from elsewhere, and how most other organizations treated their people who were not having fleet on street. So for example, the same IT companies, the kind of things that happened in IT companies versus what BFSI had to, we didn't have a choice. We couldn't tell people to kind of work from home. If you had to do business, if you had to do collections, you had to go to go out on the market. So that treatment itself triggered, why am I doing this here? And plus, add to that the opportunities that all the other sectors started giving. And the massive requirement in the IT sector because of COVID and because of the opportunities that came up, just triggered this kind of movement, and particularly in the BFSI space.
So, just to build on that, if that's a good insight. That feet on street were definitely one area which were impacted, but in the office space, people who are doing the normal, let's say, corporate office, any particular segment which you found? Was it IT people who got more attrition because they had more
opportunities? I think places where, I mean, it is not just IT, actually even in finance, even in operations. It's just that the opportunities started coming up and there were a lot more people and people started looking at organizations which were offering more flexibility. Can I move into a role where I will get permanent work from home, for example? Irrespective of whether in head offices they had the flexibility. Even before COVID, we had the same flexibility that we have now in terms of working from home or office as an organization. But people just thought that maybe they're going to call me back to office. I don't want to go.
So that was a big barrier.
That was a big barrier. That kind of hit.
What about you? What is your insight on this?
So just to add, because most of the points are covered, but I would like to say that the attrition in BFSI, right? We all have been. So I have been in BFSI for more than 12, 13 years, and so attrition has been high, and rightly brought out the feet of street attrition has been high at all times. COVID only because many organizations got consolidated, they didn't have plans of expansion, right? So after COVID, it was quite natural that people who were waiting and people who were not ready to go out because everything was like we were part of essential services, so we were working. But it was very natural that once the opportunities will open up, the attrition will, so I would say that yes, the attrition have increased, especially on the feet on street, and especially I would like to particularly put this on insurance. Like I'm from the general insurance where health. So if you see last 5-6 years, typically in health insurance there has been lots of investment expansion. So today companies, so earlier only you can say health companies like Star or Max were getting this insurance as standalone health insurance companies. Today GI companies, even ICICI, Bajaj, Reliance, Tata AG, everybody wanted to get into this segment. So naturally the demand today also, so in fact pre-COVID and after COVID everybody realized that this is the segment you need to be. So that in particularly general insurance industry has triggered a huge demand for sales people who are part of the health vertical segment. But the point is, I would agree that feet of street and few skills which were in demand during these two periods. Now we have last 3 to 6 months we have seen a slowdown, especially even in IT. The kind of attrition we saw during COVID and just in you can say early 21. That has stabilized in operations, finance and IT.
So in your case, it's a very industry specific because of the trends in the business.
Yes.
So Dhanashree, what is your take on this?
So as you were speaking, I was reflecting that let's say if we were to take away the Great Resignation phenomena itself, and like my colleague said, attrition has always been a problem in insurance in many ways. So I'm taking that away and I'm also resonating that is it something that we have resolved to that this is a reason and we're attributing everything to it. Okay, and if I take away that, then it's pretty much similar. So be, for example, the feet on street attrition during COVID times reduced and then it's again where it was. This year, of course, with efforts there is a reduction in it. The other skill sets, I think COVID, Great Resignation, all this phenomena was there was something more, that reflective space came through. And that realization stayed with all of us of what is more important in life and therefore, prioritization. You heard words of, mental well-being, balance, work-life balance, which started becoming so important. And that became a factor in all our plans. That became like if you're not adhering to it, it's almost like you're losing the race somewhere. So honestly speaking, in BFSI you would still struggle because you're still working in a very aggressive selling. It's a push product still, so you're still struggling to stay up to it. But now it's important that even that is factored. Like today, for example. The ask comes in, we had something like a digital detox. And I do have feet on street asking that, you used to do that, please continue doing that because that is important from a work-life balance.
So you have given a very interesting insight over here, at least on the first part of the attrition. To sum up this part, I would say some of it is industry driven, some of it is like trend which was already happening, some is business related. But I think the last point which you mentioned is that there is something which has fundamentally changed in the way people think, and this is not related to age and status, right? The COVID has impacted us somewhere in our mindset, and I think this is a phenomena which is here to stay, at least for the near future. And the smart thing will be to kind of retune our HR practices around it. So just to move on to another thing which has always been a little bit of a question mark in my head. Maybe this time we'll start from you. We'll come back to you. So, we hear that there is a lot of upskilling, reskilling, and all those kind of things which are required in the workforce. So I would like to know from you, from your practical day-to-day example, which are the areas where you foresee that this workforce is distinctly in need of new skill sets, new knowledge, new approach? Which are those areas in your particular context, for example, and we can go around with the same question.
So specifically, I think it would be across industry, data understanding, decision making using data, all the data analytics related fields, technology within IT. A lot of other technologies has seen an upswing. The other softer side is a lot to do with the emotional intelligence itself, because that has become so important, because you have now 3-4 sets of work groups. You have in one meeting itself you have work from home, you have your full time, you have the hybrid hybrid crowd, you also have people with different work arrangements. So managing all of that and with different skills across varying skills, that has pushed a lot of managerial understanding, sensitivities within the organization, and that's where I see a challenge where managers struggle to adapt. As a manager, for example, I joined during COVID times, and then my entire team being new, it is extremely challenging that how do you coach, how do you nurture. So a lot of the managerial skill sets has seen an upswing. So these are the two big pockets that I have seen need for.
So basically, one is of course, as you said, the managerial point, which is basically managing people in a very different context, environment, right, of campus and so on and so forth. And the other is new skills like AI and so on and so forth.
That's right.
So Akhilesh, on this subject, can you specifically say that, okay, you hired a bunch of people and then the business came back and told you that, look, they are lacking in essential skills. So these are the skills. Okay, I mean, something which is really unique, because throughout we keep talking about these trends, saying that people should know machine learning, they should know AI, they should know big data, etc., etc. Have you experienced any of this?
Yes, so I'll cover this in two parts. One is on the technical side, and then second is the human side. So technical side, like we also cover crop insurance. Why I'm giving this example, like you mentioned, so that everybody understands. Now, when we do crop insurance and it's a government-related scheme, the schemes runs in crores because you have to cover as per the district and other stuff. So, when we were doing this and the technology and digital part came in, satellite imaging and video imaging became a key skill because it is all connected to data. We realized this 3 or 4 years back actually, and we realized that we don't have competent people who can actually, so we were buying lots of data because there are companies who does satellite imaging or drone survey and all those stuff. So what we did is that we trained people in satellite imaging, and it's a costly courses, so we selected people who are actually underwriters and we trained them. So that is on the technical part where we realized, and underwriters or business head came and said, because it's a high risk game. Second thing which we, because you mentioned to mention the examples, is EV. So we do insurance for motor, right, in general insurance. Now motor has been traditional diesel and petrol. 2.5 years back when the EV segment came in, right, we all at a leadership level said that what are those skills which are missing, because EV will be a big thing, and EV machinery on motor is very different to a petrol, and same is the spare parts and other stuff. So that is how the technical need came in, and it is good that we realized, because we keep doing this brainstorming, and it came from the partner. When Ola EV came in, they were the first partners with Reliance General Insurance. When we said that if they start selling and insurance starts coming, we don't have first to price a product, and we don't have people who can do survey, because they didn't. Then we tied up with the company in Pune, which does the electric vehicle training. It's a big. We trained around 25-30 people, trained the trainer program, and finally trained our all claims team. So this is on the technical side, because that's a need which comes in. And if you are behind this, then it is going to, you're going to suffer in the business. So that is just two examples.
Because this question has always bothered me, that we keep reading it's a trend that people are not having the necessary skills, but I think your examples made the thing come very, very true. And what about you? What is your take on this point?
I think on while technical side it's critical, and a lot changes with business and with the external environment changing. See, for example, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana scheme comes in. You train everybody to ensure that people are able to use that and sell. The moment government decides and says, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't have enough funds to keep giving money, then you have to retrain all of your people who were using this as a clutch to sell, saying that boss, now without the clutch start selling. A lot happens because in the BFSI space we are very driven by regulatory framework. Things that happen in because of the regulator, because of the government. I mean, they're very, very closely involved in our day-to-day functioning. The entire day-to-day. I mean, we had to change all our posters across the country because that was the highlight of how we used to sell. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana was a big thing for us. And then government decided that we no longer want to do it. So how do you retrain those set of people quickly to kind of take away that clutch or take away, or similarly when this comes in, how do you quickly use it so that you become the first mover? Otherwise somebody else will go ahead and do that and grab all the business that is. So it's a survival game. It's no longer good to have or nice to have. It's necessary today, and you'll have to have it today if you're not having it today or as of yesterday, as most people say. So that I think has been the critical thing. How do you ensure all of this happens as quickly as the regulatory changes happen?
Okay, that's I think we're really getting into the nuts and bolts of this. What about your experience in this area?
Of course, I agree with whatever my fellow panel members have said. Just got to put a little different perspective, right? Tactical versus strategic, right? All of us are function of expectations, right? And it is proven that supply always meets the demand. Correct. So of course there is an interim period when there is a mismatch between the supply and demand, and then here we are talking about the certain skill sets, and they'll get sorted, right? I think it's just a matter of time. My worry is, what about certain things which we discovered during the period, right? And my personal view, right? I think, the way I saw it, the leadership or the managerial team clearly lacked ability to deal with the crisis. Right? So they were not trained. The first time something of this kind of this magnitude was happening, and most of them were found clueless. So that's about the senior management. How do we fix that? I think that's something there's no tactical solution available there. I think you need to work on them and build that ability. Come to the middle level and the junior level, right? Most of them were working out of home. Now, see, we are a society which essentially is driven and engaged by monitoring, right? Now, even for the employees, we have a geotag, right? Where they are, what time they have gone where, and then we do, so we basically log and want to see. We are a society, when we don't have a camera, we'll jump the signal. Correct? So what happened was, most of the employees used to work from home. My issue was the integrity, right? And then organizations have suffered. We really don't know whether people, we couldn't, there was this gap between the employee delivery from home. So a lot of organizations have started, gone back to the office, and basically it is to ensure that they work, right? My perspective has been also, our social structure doesn't allow employees to work from home that efficiently, especially in the metros, given the kind of houses that we stay, etc., etc. So it is far better to work from office rather than home. So I think those are the aspects I think we need to address, right? How do we build high integrity among the employees, right? My daughter actually is, I'm just going to digress, she works from home, so she's in New York while her company is on the other coast, California. But she logs into work at 9 o'clock and then she logs out at 6. She doesn't take call because that's the kind of a culture, right? Even in India, we have that kind of a culture which is prevailing, especially in the tech firms, because that gets monitored, right? What time you basically log in, what is the kind of a delivery you are doing, etc., etc., etc. So that's sorted. How do we develop that culture within the society, within the organization, where that integrity essentially is assumed, right? Yeah, that's my issue.
Interesting, because I think this has thrown up a very clear-cut structure. What is needed is skill sets, mindsets which are required at a leadership or managerial level, certain type of rejigging of the mind, leadership mindset. Second is specific skills like you mentioned about satellite imagery, etc., which is very, very hands-on stuff. And the third, I think the part which spans all of them is how do we actually create a culture where we don't have to monitor people or somehow we have to get over this. So interestingly, before we go to the next and possibly the last aspect, these days one of the things which is being talked about is like the emotional quotient. Now companies and people are talking about trust quotient. So the trust quotient is something which they are measuring, or people are becoming important. It's becoming important. Trust of the organization in the people, and more importantly, the trust of the people in the organization. Both ways. Do people trust the organization, and does the organization trust the people? Because I think COVID forced many of the things to come out in the open. I mean, either you trust people or you don't trust people. Work from home. And I remember in a bank, work from home initially to the compliance officer was a nightmare. He said the customer data is sitting on his laptop, he can take a screenshot, he can take a photograph of it, and they're all real concerns, but somehow we all manage. Now coming to maybe just to wind up this thing, see, one of the things which is I think very clear, I'm sure all of you will agree, that educational institutions may not offer you absolutely tailor-made solutions to your skill gaps. Okay, and I mean there are institutions which are giving courses in AI, analytics, and so on and so forth. But I think a lot of it has to be done with agility, and this reminds me, as they say, this is called the beating heart surgery. You can't stop the heart, you can't stop the business, but you still have to do something to the heart and make sure that it continues. We go around very quickly, and if you can just share from your organization some initiatives on the L&D side which you have put in place, which try to address these gaps, because there's a limited support available from academic institutions. To that extent, they are very long term. How do you manage this L&D, upskilling, etc. in-house?
Let me be candid. I don't think that in my organization I have done something which is very, very different than what has happened in the industry, right? Whatever is happening in the industry is being done. But I think, the firm that I belong to, the culture is very different. We are truly inclusive in many ways. So whatever we do, and especially on the development side, I think we involve and engage people, and then people get what they ask for, right? One is, as an organization, we sit in the room. I think we decide, I think we need to train people on this technology, to train people on communication. While we do that, but at the same time, I think it only gets done and implemented if the recipient also agrees. So it's very, very participative, and people can ask for anything. So people, last time, when they resumed, they asked for, we want, yoga. And then last month, a bunch of people came and wrote back to us, we want, stress management session, especially people who are going to the dealing room. They're saying a lot of stress nowadays, we just want, half an hour, so we just engage. So it's more meeting the demand. So it's not a rocket science. It's just an approach that we take, and we believe that works. Because we've tried, sitting across, identifying training needs, organizing training programs and then chasing people to come in the room, right? And then you'd always would have experienced that you would have after 25 confirmations, there will be 18 people in the room, out of which some people will get called for the business, especially if you are having a training in the office. Only because they should not get called, we put them in a hotel, right? So that making it enough. Again, going back to that monitoring wala thing. So बाजू में बैठा है business वाला, कहाँ पे वहाँ पे training पे बुला उसको. So that kind of stuff happens. And that's the reason you'll have people coming in conference attending here. Office में रखो बुलाएगा वापस उसको. So that's where we are.
It's a need-based and being very responsive, right? What about you? Any specific, Ramakrishna, you could?
Yeah, I think one of the things we also realized is we'll have to catch them when they're more amenable. So rather than doing a lot of stuff at the end when we finally get them into the organization and doing a lot of training, and because of all the other obvious reasons, once you are here, then you want to get them to do business and rather than sitting in training programs. We thought, can we go back to college? We participate and partner in the colleges. I mean, while colleges are not very flexible in terms of changing a lot of curriculum, related stuff, what we've realized is that it is easier if we go and partner with them and just be there and try and two things that we've done extensively provide internships. As many people, I mean, we don't even have any selection process. If somebody wants to do an internship, go to the nearest branch and start. As easy as that, if you're from that area. And throughout their 2 years of, and we hire a lot of B-school talent. So throughout the 2 years, whenever they want an internship, whenever they want to do a project, you can always walk into our branches. So that level of ease we've started creating. And second is our own people going back to college. So I take a few sessions like that. Every other person, whoever wants to hire people. So all my people managers, I told them, if you want to hire, please go to college and create a brand. Talk about what is the kind of work we do, create some enthusiasm, create some interest, and talk about what they need to learn. And once they learn that, hire them. So that kind of
backward integration.
A little more.
I think that's very interesting. Akhilesh,
So I think just adding to Rama, because on the same lines, almost all BFSI companies are doing that. So in turn, what we have done is we have formalized that internship program. So the people come in as interns, work with us for 3 months. If they are, we have performance criteria. If they do well, we take them on board as full-time employees. And second part is, like, luckily in insurance there have been insurance courses or syllabus which has got added. So what we do that, and especially this has worked for MTs, because somewhere MT hiring and non-lateral hiring has always been differentiated. I don't know why, but it has been always. So MT, what we do is that the syllabus is there, we shortlist, and in there, I think last semester they go along with the insurance, so they know that they are joining the insurance. And before they come, we have extended our LMS to them. So what they do is basic product and behavioral training which are there on LMS, they complete and then come in. So they become more, I would say, they know about the product, they know about the process, and for their success. And second part is on the L&D. I think what is important is that if we do not let the employees know that these trainings are for their success and the managers. So in our company, I have stopped taking the training need, because it is just either on a system or a Excel. Training need goes, it comes. Sometimes it's genuine, sometimes it is because they have to follow a training mandates or calendar. So we have been going to business and saying that let us know on product or people, what are those where you feel that this is success, this is going to add into your success. So especially I think on product parts, especially during this COVID, and there are lots of products which got launched. So if employees are not aware of the products, right, they will not be able to succeed and convince, because there's so much of competition. So I think somewhere business has realized that it is for them, that if they send for training, if it is adding to value, then we do it.
Okay. Dhanashree, anything from your experience?
So what we've done is, I think 2 things. We've put people and business at the heart of our entire training structure. We've increased 2 things significantly. One is investment in talent development across, where we've worked with national and international business schools, in very customized work across different hierarchies. So, I mean, today as we stand compared to 2 years ago, up to the board level, we have very clear visibility of up to CEO -4, what's my talent depth. And that is something which is tracked at a CEO scorecard level, my scorecard level clearly. So I have visibility of that. And it is a very rounded thing which looks at talent, reward, development in a very triangulative way. The other part is we have, on the development side, every individual has a customized training passport or a Gurukul as we call it, which is tracked at an individual level. So digital skills, leadership skills is significantly invested, and almost about 80% of my entire L&D structure is either engaging from a simulation perspective, and we've used, in fact, we launched something for the millennials. We call it aspiring leaders. Now here we've done methodology which is different. So you have escape rooms, you have hackathons, you have volunteering, as I call it, which is working with an NGO and developing a leadership skill. You go to a village, you construct a house or you paint together, you're giving back, so the purpose need is met, you're learning together, you're working, it's testing your resilience. So very different ways of development is what we've aggressively invested in.
So I think this has really brought out the crux of what is happening on the L&D front. One is that it is a very need-based training. Today they call it bite-sized training. The training should be available when the person needs it. The second thing I think which has come out very clearly is that the accountability of upskilling is not only on the organization. The
learner.
Yeah, because he has to have a stake in it, he has to have a skin in the game. One thing this panel discussion has proved, which is something which is going around in my head, that for HR, the textbook for HR is being written as we speak. In our earlier times, we used to study textbooks and then companies would implement those HR practices. But I think today the textbook is being written even as we speak. So it's a very exciting time to be. Before we wind up, I will just do the magic wand round. The magic wand round will be that I will say that, look, if I had a magic wand, I would. Okay, and you just complete it with one wish, one thought. So if you had a magic wand, you would do what?
Oh, I already said that. If I would have had a magic wand, right? I think I would want a society to be much more value-based and integrity-driven. Yeah, I just wish.
What about you? What would your magic wand be used for?
Yeah, at least beat the traffic in Bombay.
That will be a very magic wand.
You can ask for a helicopter.
Yeah, kind of fear of flying. But I think for organizations, at least to the people, a little bit of understanding of what is it that the new generation is looking for. I think that's my magic wand wish.
What about
So I would say two things. One is inclusion and one is transparency. If that develops overall, the organizations will be actually beneficial in a longer run.
Okay, Dhanashree, what is your magic wand?
I'm trying to think a little blank on what should be the magic wand, because it's like the minute you give one wish, it's like I wish I had many. So I would say it always puzzles me that as HR professionals, you still have programs which is being business partner. Okay, this is one function which continues to have that. So what I would wish is clearly far more understanding, because human resources is very, very strategic if you choose to make it, and a lot of it depends on both what HR brings to the table and what the CEO expects of it. That is what makes it work. So I would say clearly I'd wish this thing to disappear, and acceptance far more that this can be a very change making sort of a function.
Great. I've moderated a couple of panels, but let me tell you, this has been a very, very fantastic experience because people have really shared from the bottom of their heart, very, very genuinely. And I have thoroughly enjoyed. So I must thank the panelists for their contribution. I think in summary, we can just say that, look, times are changing. There's no, it's a very, very, I say, obvious statement. But especially on the talent acquisition side, on the upskilling side, these are things, which I think the HR profession as such and business together has to now start taking these things on a more real-time basis. We have to have a different type of connect with employees. And, this COVID and post-COVID and all these kind of things have thrown up realities of work, the workplace, and employees, their expectations in a manner which was completely unprecedented till now. So I think the faster we stay ahead of the curve and start thinking that, look, these are the kind of massive changes which are likely to become the order of the day rather than an exception. And if we are able to do that, then I think we will be in a much better position to add value to business and of course to our professions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the panel.